First, the regime won't be here by June.
Of course, actually.
So it won't be them doing it. I would have suggested, I would have thought that they would have allowed the new regime at least, some 6 months to settle in, before fostering what has. There have been several attempts. This subsidy thing has become very perennial. It's just not the Buhari administration that tried to remove it. Yar'Adua said he was going to. Obasanjo said he was going to. Jonathan said he was going to. But somehow, because it is at the heart of social and financial inclusion, by the time you do the numbers, it becomes very difficult, for you to go that way, especially when you have not presented any alternatives. So I would have been more interested in looking at the alternatives as being presented that's not, in the form of palliatives. That's giving cash to 10 million. Are you giving them the cash to buy food? Are you giving them the cash to start working? Are you giving them the cash to start buying bicycles? Are you giving them the cash to buy donkeys? What would the cash be? How does it cushion the effect of the spike in every service arising from the fact that we are an economy that is fuel dependent? So that's
back in 2021 it was a 5,000 naira cash palliatives. Of course, she hasn't really mentioned how much is going to be given this time around, but it's very interesting to see, like you said, what is the palliative really going to be for? Donkeys, bicycles, transportation, we don't really know how it's exactly going to be used. And back then there was also the question of how do you go about identifying who the real vulnerable Nigerians are. How do you then protect Nigerians who are truly vulnerable from missing out on the opportunity of having a palliative? Because we've seen situations where people take advantage of loopholes within the system to, at the end of the day, brand themselves as vulnerable and take advantage. We saw this back in during the COVID-19 era, should I say. Like, how do we prevent it this time around?
Well, truth is that practically everybody in Nigeria is vulnerable now. If you want to look at the definition of vulnerability. Okay, we're vulnerable to so many things, okay? And no matter how much you earn, because we run these extended family systems, okay, where you have to look out for everybody. If you're the only person who's earning in your family, you become vulnerable because you need to spread things. So I think it's all about all of us. And I don't think, we're looking at this fuel subsidy challenge the way we should look at it. I think we should have looked at it from a more comprehensive energy mix thing. Okay, what does fuel present to us? What is fuel? Okay, and are there any alternatives to fuel that we can now be able to support that might be more sustainable and enduring? Because no matter how you look at it, okay, diesel has been deregulated already, and nobody can afford it. Okay, nobody can. Very few can. Okay. Now, when you do the same thing to petrol, and it's something that over 80 million Nigerians are using every day. In fact, about 160 million, if you may, because those who are grinding, those who are barbing, those who are doing KK, those who are doing whatever. All of us are dependent on some form of, fuel dependency, or the other, whatever it is you're doing, even if you want to light up your fan in your house. So fuel, as it is, as a support, addictive, if you may, for energy, is critical, not only critical, central. Okay, not only central, it's at the heart, and in fact, it's at the center of everything we do. So if you remove it and you start giving people money, would the money you give to them not also be used in buying the same fuel? That would be the question number one. If somebody who is a barber, or somebody who grinds in the market, or somebody who does a motorcycle business, or somebody who's a taxi driver, you now classify them amongst these 10 million households, and then you're going to be giving them money. When you give them that money, are they going to convert it to fuel, or are they going to, what? I don't understand. That's actually the challenge.
All right, so looking at the subsidy removal and putting into consideration Nigeria's current inflation figures, global inflationary pressures, when we talk about subsidy removal, there's always a question of, are we really ready for it? Is Nigeria itself ready for the impact that is going to, come as a result of subsidy removal?
Well, I think the backlash more than the impact, okay? Whatever it is you're saving, okay? You're saving to provide social services. That's what it is. And in providing social services, you must look at what is critical and what is social, because those are the two kinds of services, are critical services and are social services. Now, if you are removing subsidy to provide social service and subsidy on petrol, or petrol now becomes the most critical social service that you're giving to the people. What I thought they would have done was probably, designate fuel stations or filling stations where you could go in with a card, okay, and then you're metered or something, because if you want to, then it'll be subsidized for you, and they're able to mark that you can't use that card in any other place. Now, if you want to go and buy at the high end, you'll be able to do so. That would be a lot better. Now, but added to that, I think we should even go away from this whole dependence on fuel and look at what other people have done. Kenya, for an instance, Kenya removed, fuel subsidy, and Kenya is not running riots. Why? Because when Kenya removed the subsidy on PMS, okay, they introduced, the electric vehicles, they introduced the batteries. So if we have Naseni, which is directly under the presidency, getting in deals to the extent that I think I put in about 400 or 300 something million dollars to do solar panels. I do not see why we can also go the way, of trying to get batteries, or trying to get electric vehicles, of trying to go the way of CNG.
That's really exploring green energy.
Alternatives. Okay? Now, if you had this as a 6-month program for the new administration that is coming in, it gives them some time to be able to now look at what options are there. If we've lived it subsidy for 8 years, I don't think there's anything wrong in living with it for another 1 year. So that this new administration now knows that, okay, now we are cutting out a new trajectory. We are trying to discover new pathways, and these pathways will be, how do we use compressed natural gas? How do we use hydro? How do we use methanol? Okay, how do we use hydrogen cell fuels? All right. Now, these are all technologies that have been patented and in use, okay, globally, all right, and they are efficient. So why aren't we, looking at it? And we're fixated on fuel, removing fuel subsidy, and then it's like taking candy from a child and then giving the child money to go and buy chocolate.
All right, so I want to look into some of the effects that we're going to be looking at for Nigerians. Now, you talked about diesel deregulation and how it affected the current price. Now, if fuel is deregulated itself, we're looking at almost 700 naira per litre at this point. Now, how do we protect the Nigerians out there? Because in situations of deregulation, it's very easy for cartelization and even monopolization to come into play. And of course, this opens up vulnerable Nigerians to being exploited. What measures do we need to take in order to protect them?
None. What can you do? It's an open market thing. You want to buy, you buy. You don't want to buy. So there's no way you can protect. What we are doing is protection. And what you want to do is to remove that protection. That's what it is. Okay, so in trying not, in the ability or inability of states to be able to, protect, superintend its own policies, then I say, okay, fine, let's yank it off. So for me, like I said, the moment okay, let me please put this on record. I am not against removal of subsidy, but I am against removing subsidy when you don't have alternatives that you can put on the table. And there are so many alternatives that we are not exploring. That's my point. So until you're able to, okay, somebody says, oh, before you remove this, make certain that the refineries are working. That won't solve it. That won't solve it. Before you remove it, make certain that we'll have alternatives to making certain that petrol is no longer emperor. Because what's happening here is that petrol is that, bull in a China shop. I mean, you don't take it out slowly. It brings out your hardwares. Okay, and so what we need to do is make certain that we have been able to say, okay, this is gas, we are flaring 2.2. We can get methanol from gas that can power all our automobiles, that can power our homes, that can power our generators. This is available. Now, how much is it going to cost? Where do we start? When do we start? Who do we start with? It could be a 6 months thing. And then in these 6 months, you begin to do your trials. Okay? Now, this is hydrogen self-waste, have sun all over the place. I mean, everybody's cooking. All right? Now, how come we're not exploring all these technologies, all these naturals, all these renewables, like you call them, that are available? That if you put those things on the table and you say to people, okay, you know what? Because it's going to take us 7 months for these things to get fully commercialized or fully, spread all over the country, you might need to buy this fuel for this amount of money for the next 6 months. It becomes a lot easier to bear. So when you remove that subsidy, everybody knows, okay, fine, in the next 6 months, at least I have a CNG tank in my boot and I'm good. But you just remove it and say, okay, you know what? And again, the question will be, you have collected money from the World Bank. I don't know if it's a loan or a grant. The $800 million you've collected. Is it going to be infinitum or is it going to be a one-off thing? If you're going to be giving this 10 million,
50 million.
No, 10 million households, translating to 5% per household. Okay. Now, are you going to pay them once? Are you going to pay them every month? How long is it going to last?
And what's going to be the financial implications of this or the economic implications?
Are they supposed to be investing the money into starting their own businesses that can help them now, start generating money that they can use in now buying the fuel at whatever cost that it sells at the market? So I think it's a little bit not well thought through.
All right, we'll get into that a little more right after the break. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
That's right. You can see it.
Yo, welcome back to Business Highlights on Trust TV. My name is Chamon Dabeng and I'm still here with economist Dr. Emeka Okengo, and we're currently discussing subsidy removal, which is fuel subsidy, and it's soon coming to an end by June 2023. Now, I would like to know your take on this. A couple of analysts have actually suggested that subsidy removal should be done in phases as opposed to the outright removal of subsidy. So taking it at a 20%, 30%, 40% until we get to the 100% removal. What do you make? What is your own argument on this?
My argument is that the word subsidy is a catch-22, question, or what the military people call catch-22. No matter which way you take it, it's not going to be good news. You remove it, yes, trouble. You don't remove it, trouble. Okay. However, now I want us to walk around these elements or products called fuel, okay, which is at the center of this subsidy. And this is what I keep saying to you, that even if you want to, yes, do it in phases, no problem. But are you facing to bring what? Because if you're going to be phasing out, ultimately it gets to a point where somebody needs to pay or buy at that full value. If you're facing and then you are now going to be improving the earning powers of people who are going to be buying, good idea. Now, how do you do this? Remembering that only 5% or 6% of your total population are in the formal workforce. So you have over 80%, in the informal sector or private sector or self-employed or unemployed. Now, how are you going to get these huge numbers to be able to make enough to afford at your cost? Question number one. Now, so what is important is, at the heart of this conversation is cost and affordability. So the moment you're bringing any product, it must be affordable by all. So how do you now create that minimum vis-a-vis disposable capital for every Nigerian to be able to afford it? Be it at your 20% or 30% or 40% or total removal. What are these alternatives that can be able to replace, okay, or do better or do as well than, your fuel is doing, so that we become less dependent on fuel and then begin to go towards renewables where every other person is going. Now, I think it's either Belgium or some country that are actually now converting their roads, so you don't even now need to go to any place to go and charge your batteries. As long as you put that car on that road, the batteries are under, they're not designing new tires where you put these batteries under the tire. As you're running your car, it's charging all through the way. I think it's called a Electrotron or something. Now, these are people who are forward thinking. So even if you ask those guys, it's okay, it's going to take us 2 years or 1 year to, make certain that we've paved every road with this. And for this period, you might need to pay a little bit more. It gives some sense of some terminal date. That's the point I'm trying to make. So if you don't develop, if you don't bring that alternative, then you are singing to the choir. You have just sold a monkey and bought a dog. You understand what I'm saying? I mean, you don't like things that stoop, and you say, okay, fine, I'm going to sell my dog because he stoops, and you sell the dog, and you buy a monkey. Do you understand what I'm saying? So
basically, you're still ending up with the same problem.
You are where you started. And you see, and again, the transparency around this thing is again what baffles me, because we had cases where people were accused of subverting, the subsidy regimes, arrests were made. Some of us people ended up, in high government offices. I can't remember anybody that went to jail. I can't remember anybody that made any refunds. So if again, people are not doing time because they have done crime, okay? People are not punished because, they have done things that are untoward. It also encourages, this, I can get away with blue murder. So first, those who had negated that process, what has the system done to them? Okay, are we just going to say, okay, fine, everybody who's stolen money from subsidy regime, go and sin no more? We're now starting a new regime, it's a new country. No, I don't think that's proper. So there are a lot of myriad of issues that are around it, really.
All right, so I'd like you to speak on Nigeria's public transportation systems. You just talked about how the bicycles that, can easily charge the person's phones. You go to different countries and you have different sources of transportation. With the cost of transport today, what will become of the public transportation systems? What more do we need to do to improve that area of Nigeria's?
We don't even have a public transportation system to start with. All the two attempts were made, ended up in total and complete shameful, avoidable collapse.
Because this will definitely affect the cost of transportation.
I tell you, there was one time they got, first it was, what were they calling these green vehicles? They introduced one time, and then the buses. Okay, and I'd been invited into one of these shows, and I said, they're not going to work when you have not developed a proper back end. And what is that back end? The maintenance, the spares. Okay, if you do not have the ability to maintain anything, it's just a matter of time, it will collapse. So in the first place, not only don't we even have a public transportation system, I don't even think we understand it. In other countries of the world, the public transportation system is one way you can get everybody to pay tax. That's what they call park and ride. Okay, you decongest the city centers, by just building parks where people can just, park their vehicles and then ride into the city. Okay, and that way that you can also intermodal your transportation system, where your tram and your trains and your buses are intermodal, that you just buy a travel card, just like it's done every other place in the world. But for you to be able to do that, you have to have the trams and the trains and the buses. Okay, and of course, either your blue or yellow or red tax is running, but you don't even have any of these things. Not even one is functioning. So the public transportation system is not even, don't even discuss it. So what is there to talk about? It's not there.
Okay, so what would be the impact for the Nigerians who are, out there using the, should I say the keke napep, the motorbikes and all of that? So what happens now?
What is going to happen is that where you pay 50 naira to get to, you probably will needing to pay 500 naira or more. And you wouldn't have the 500 naira to pay, and the man wouldn't have any money to buy fuel. You are frustrated, he's frustrated. There's going to be a lot of, anger, frustration. Mental health issues will be on the increase. People will get very intolerant. Fights start breaking out. Marriages will start breaking down. People are going to be breaking down mentally.
So
physically.
basically, it's like a 360 effect.
So you just need to be careful when you walk out of your house, because you can say good morning and you get a stab. Okay, so that's how bad. Okay, or that not even how bad. That's simply what's going to be happening.
All right. So I would like you to also speak to the issues of productivity at this point, especially within the manufacturing sector. Like you said earlier on, we're very dependent on fuel. We're very dependent on diesel, especially with the fact that Nigeria's energy sector itself is not fully functional. The power sector itself is not fully functional. So what is your take on what will become of productivity within the country?
Well, productivity is of maybe 2-3 levels. First, you have your full productivity, that is metrics, okay, where you have the back end and the front end. Then you have the kind of productivity we have in Nigeria, where we're just adding value at the center, okay. So it is going to be crazy, trust me, because we're not even, I don't know how to put this now so that it doesn't sound too base. We are not a productive country.
So we've been having discussions about boosting productivity in the country. Is this something that's going to set us back at the end of the day?
What are you producing as a country? You're talking about boosting product. What are you going to boost? Your clothing lines? What are you going to boost? Your car manufacturing lines? Your bicycle manufacturing lines? Your plates, production? Your wristwatches? You ain't producing nothing. What you're doing is that you're adding value. You're just bringing things as CKD and putting them together. And a lot of those things are dependent on energy. And you're putting the things, and the people you're competing with are also allowed to bring them in because of WTO. Get it? Now, because you're not supporting your productivity with your STI, your science, technology, innovation, there is nothing original to you here. What you're doing is to get molds from China, and you're producing ball pens, and you're writing made in Nigeria. For every car you're producing here, what you're doing is to bring molds and then bring the steel parts and the engine parts, and then maybe inscribe your name. Ditto for your clothes. So what are you producing? That's the question. So if you want to boost productivity, you're just simply going to be helping some other person's economy grow. Fabrics come from Pakistan or from India or from Bangladesh or from China. That's the truth, including everything you wear: Void, George, jeans, t-shirts. Your hairs, be it fake or natural, don't come here. Your lipsticks, your wristwatches, your earrings.
So basically everything I'm wearing.
So tell me what you're producing, what you're going to be boasting.
All right. So before we go, we only have a couple of minutes left. We've seen the federal government making strides to revive some of our refineries out there. We saw it with Port Harcourt, we're seeing it with Kaduna. We also have the Dangote refinery, which is upcoming very soon. So what is your take on refining and stabilization of prices? What do you make of it?
As long as you are pricing the crude oil in USD or Forex, the price won't come down. That's my answer. As long as you're going to be buying the crude oil to refine in Dangote's refinery in dollars, in Forex, which is what I think would happen, must happen, because of the JVs, and the SPVs and the production agreements they have, then the price won't come down. We've done millions and millions of years to refine our refineries to get them working. It's not worked. We've done turnarounds, it's not worked. What we just need to do is, yes, look at the Dangote refinery and then begin to build some little modular, common shared refineries among the states. Maybe that will help.
All right. Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have for today. So let me quickly thank my guest in the studio. Thank you so much, Dr. Emeka Okingo, economist, for joining the show. And to our viewers out there, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to follow us on our social media platforms. You can find us on Facebook, on YouTube.